Hello everyone, it's Carol here at Aakash Journals. Lovely to have you with me as always. Well, an update on this little mini series is long overdue, so that's what I've decided I'm going to be doing today. The embroideries I've got in front of me are part of a little mini series called Postcards from England. There is 4 previous videos which will go through in detail some of the little embroideries that I've got there. As you can see, I've got a big bundle of embroideries that I've completed probably over the last 18 months. I bought a 12-month subscription from Nikki Franklin over at the Stitchery and supplemented the subscription with some additional kits of hers. When I took out the subscription, my original intention was to turn each one of these little mini embroideries into actual fabric postcards with a little bit of stamping detail on the back, and then to create a fabric journal with pockets and tuck each one of the little postcards into its own little pocket inside the journal. As much as I still love that idea, reluctantly I'm walking away from it, because now that I've completed all my little embroideries, I've realised that by making them into individual postcards and then tucking them into a fabric journal with pockets, it's going to give me a really big chunky journal at the end of the day, and that's not what I'm after. So I'm now thinking that what I will do is, rather than turn these into individual postcards, I will make them into the pages of my journal. So what I'm showing you here is the last embroidery that I've done for this little mini series. Last time you saw this, in the previous video, I had sketched out the design and I was actually painting the background. Since then, I've obviously gone in and I've embroidered the detail on it. It's all finished now and folded to the shape of a postcard, so I'll have to go in and actually press all of these to open them out, because they're all roughly folded to the shape, or pressed to the shape of a postcard. But before I do that and make a start on creating my fabric journal, I'll insert a few photographs so you can have a better look at this last embroidery. Whilst you were looking at the pictures, I took the opportunity to press all my embroideries, with the exception of this little one, and I'm going to use this one on the front cover. So as you can see, it's still folded into roughly a postcard size. I also went through all my embroideries and put them in an order that I thought would give me quite a pleasing flow. That was a bit of a challenge because not all the embroideries sit well together. As you can see here, I've got one that is a different orientation from this, and the colours aren't a perfect match, but they're close enough. Some of the embroideries sit really well together. So for example, these two are absolutely gorgeous together and work really well. The other challenge I had was that the fabrics of each of the embroideries were not necessarily the same. With this being a 12-month subscription, the individual embroideries came each month on different fabrics. So it might be a different texture or it might be a different colour. So that was an added complication. But I've done it the best I can, and I've got them all in order here, ready to go. Each of these embroideries are on roughly 10-inch square pieces of fabric. So I need to trim these pages to make sure that each one of the embroideries sits as centrally as I can on each of the pages. That's my next job. It'll be a bit fiddly, but I'm sure I can do it. And finally, whilst you're away, I took the opportunity to cut some fabric that I'm going to use for my cover. This is much, much bigger than what I will need, but I wanted to make sure I got plenty for my cover and for my spine. Okay, so I'm going to leave you now and I'm going to trim all of my pages to the size and then I'll be back. Here are all my embroideries trimmed to size, as you can see. They're 8 1/4 in height now by 7 inches wide, and I've done a half centimetre border all the way round. Now these embroideries, because they came as a subscription, that has more or less dictated how I create my journal, because as I said originally, I was going to make these into individual postcards, put them in a pocket, and then stitch that pocket to my fabric journal or the pages of my fabric journal, but that was going to make my whole journal way, way, way too thick. And because they are on individual pieces of fabric, the other 2 options I had were to make these embroideries smaller and stitch them onto my fabric pages or my fabric signatures, or I could actually make the embroideries themselves into a signature or a page in my journal, and that's the route that I've decided to go down. It's going to be quite a torturous way to create my pages inside my journal, because I'm going to have to join all of these pieces together. So for example, this would be one side of my page. Let me move that across for you. This would be one side of my journal. This would be the other side. I'm going to have to stitch these down the middle, and hence why I've done the border. And then on the reverse, I'm going to have, where are we? I'm going to have these 2 pages, which I need to stitch together here, but also stitch at the top to these 2 pages. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you can follow it, but you'll see what I'm planning to do as I go. Because of that, I can't make a start on the cover until the signature pages are done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go away and I'm going to machine stitch these together. I'm going to join these 2 together using that border there, so it'll look something like that. And I'm going to do that with all of my pieces. So I'll do that with these 2 next and join these 2 pieces together. And then when these 2 are done, I will join them on the reverse to these pieces. So when all my pieces are joined together down the side and along the top there, I'll come back. So here are all my embroideries, or rather I should say my signatures, all stitched, not in any particular order, but I'm hoping you can see on camera, because I've used off-white thread. I've stitched along the bottom here. I've left a gap all the way along here, but I've stitched here, up the side, along the top, down this side, and across this little bit down there, and obviously they're stitched down there. So that's one, like that. That's another one, still with the pins in. And as you can see, they're all inside out, and that's my final one. So if I open it up, you can see that those are my right sides together. Before I go any further, what I'm going to do is just snip across my corners, which will give me, hopefully, neater corners when I turn this the right way out. I'm also going to, let me just pop these off to one side, bring this one in. I'm going to put some of this double-sided lightweight adhesive interfacing in here. I'm going to put a portion in there inside my stitching, another portion in here, and the same on the other side, so in here and in here. And then I'm going to use some of this lovely, really lovely lightweight wool batting, and again cut this to size so that it fits inside my stitching. So a piece here and a piece here, but I'm not going to do it on the other side because I think that just one layer of this is going to be enough. I don't want to take it right across if this was the right size, obviously, and goes up to there and down to here. I don't want to take it across my spine because I don't want anything too thick there. So I'm just relying on a piece here and a piece here. So I'm going to go away and do that, and then I'm going to turn these the right way out so that the right sides, this side is outermost, and then I'll come back. I thought I'd just quickly show you what my pieces look like before they're turned right side out. So that's the right side again. I've got my wadding adhered in place on the top here. It's only gently adhered in place, but it's enough to hold it in place. As you can see, I've clipped my corners and I've gone as close to my stitching in those corners as I could. And if I flip it over, that's my interfacing on the other side. You can see it there. So that's one. This is the other one ready to be turned right side out. And this is one that I've already done. So inside you can see my batting is there, my interfacing is there, and I've just turned it inside out, and I've used a bone folder to turn my corners and get them as good as I can. They're not perfect by any means, but they're good enough for me because this little journal's going nowhere. It needs a good press. I've just literally flipped it right side out. As you can see, I've got that edge to turn in, and I will hand stitch that in a minute or two, and that's what the other side looks like. I'm going to flip these the right way round, and I'm going to press those edges along the bottom and hand stitch them just with a little bit of machine thread, and then that's my 3 signatures done. So this is what the signatures look like now that they're done. As you can see, stitched all along the bottom of each one and give them a good press. I will be stitching them into my cover along the spine edges here. I'm in 2 minds whether to stitch on my machine all the way around each of the pages for a bit of interest, but I'm still undecided about that, so I'm going to leave that for the moment. I'm going to make my cover, and then before I actually stitch these in, I'll address that. For the inside cover, I might put this little one on the back and stitch it onto the cover, but rather than have it as a full piece, I thought I might actually just do something like that on the back. Not too sure yet, but I definitely want to include this little one in my journal. I'm now ready to make the cover. Because I know how thick my spine is, I've been able to work out the size of my cover. I've cut 2 pieces of fabric that will be my cover, and I've just pressed in very quickly a seam allowance. So I've got one there, this is another one, as you can see, and again same thing, I've pressed in the seam allowances ready for stitching. I've also cut out 1 large piece of the wool felt batting because I thought that would be nice to have inside and give a nice squidgy cover. These are squidgy, but they're also a little bit rigid. They're still flexible, and that's because of the interfacing inside. So I've got that piece folded over, ready for going inside, and to adhere it to my front cover and my inside cover, I've cut out a couple of pieces of double-sided bond web. Now this is a paper side and this is the backing, this is the glue side. I will heat attach this to the wrong side of each of my cover pieces and then stitch it all together. For the front, what am I thinking about doing? I thought that I would use this little embroidery. It was big enough to be a page in my journal, but I want some embellishment on the front cover, and I thought I would use this. And as you can see, I folded it originally as I did with all the embroidery so that they were postcard size. I thought I would have that. I will need to reduce the size a little bit more, but I thought I would have that on my front cover like that. Now obviously I've got too much of this on the back, so all of that will go, but I'm going to stitch that to the front cover and at an angle on purpose. So what am I going to do now? I'm going to go away and I am going to stitch these two pieces of fabric together to create my cover, same as I did with my signature pages, leaving a gap along the bottom, ironing these pieces of Bonder web on each side, on the inside obviously. Then I'm going to turn it right sides out and then put my Bonder web in, but I hope that makes sense. If not, you'll see as I go along. Okay, so this is what my cover looks like now that I've got my wadding sandwiched inside and it's been stitched all the way around and turned to the right side. And I've pinned all the way across the bottom. Unlike my signatures, I'm not going to hand stitch along here. What I am going to do is bring in my sewing machine and I'm going to do a line of stitching all the way around the outside of my cover in white thread, or off white thread rather, probably just shy of ½ centimetre all the way around, because I think that would finish off the cover because it's going to look very, very plain. And I think that will help to finish it off a little bit. Plus also I'm going to be machine stitching these 3 signatures into my cover, so there'll be 3 lines of machine stitching down the spine, which I'm not planning to cover. As I say, it's going to be very, very plain. I did plan to put this on the front and I still do. As you can see, I have trimmed it down a little bit, but I am going to turn the edges in when I know how wide my spine is going to be. But I am going to turn the edges in something like that, and then I'm going to hand stitch all the way round to my cover. So I'm going to go away now and machine stitch this and then look at putting my signatures into my cover. So I'll be back in a little while. This is what my cover looks like now. With this, I've just turned the edge all the way around and added a little bit of lace. And if I flip it over, this is some Bonder web on the back. And this is just its backing paper here, so I'm just going to peel that away like that. And I'm thinking of having this so that that corner just meets the edge of my cover, and that will be stitched down there, and just have the lace hanging over. And I'm going to hand stitch this onto my cover. Now originally I was thinking that I would hand stitch before my signatures were in place, but actually I think I will stitch my signatures in place next and then go in and stitch that. So this is what the journal looks like now that the signatures are stitched in, but there has been a slight change of plan. Originally I was going to stitch this on my sewing machine, but what I found was this was too thick to go under my guide foot on my sewing machine. So I ended up doing a 5-hole pamphlet stitch and effectively bookbinding this into place with that pamphlet stitch. And it hasn't really given me the look that I want on the spine here. I've obviously done it a little bit too tight and it's puckered it. This may well pull out in time with a little bit of gentle easing, but I've got a couple of options that I can do to remedy this now. Undo the stitching here, because I think it's obviously this center one that's causing the issue and puckering it too much at the bottom here more than anything. Or I could cover it over with a bit of lace. I'm leaning towards that option for a couple of reasons. First off, it would pretty it up a little bit. The other reason, when I put my signatures in here, because they're quite thick, I ended up with, let me show you, a gap like that. Doesn't really detract from anything, but I thought it would be nice to have a little bit of lace in that gap. So I've only got 2, and if I fold this over into 3, I could have a little bit of lace tucked in there, and I think that would look quite nice, something like that. I think that would pretty it up a little bit. And also, if I use this lace or something very, very similar, I can work it so that I only have one edge that I have to try and hide. So let me try and show you. So if I have that in there like that, and obviously I'd have it looking more like that when it's in place. And if I close this up, I will have it the other way round. If I tease it gently at the bottom, I can take it under that signature, I can bring it up and over the top here. Let me just tease that a little bit. Trust me, it will tease out and smooth out really nicely. And then I could have that going over my spine. And then again, if I open it up, where are we? Here. I can do exactly the same with this going down here, which just means that this is the only edge that I have to deal with. And I can, I'm not sure if you can see this, if this is teased out nicely, I can actually work it so it tucks under that bottom piece and is hidden completely, and I think that will look nice. Now, my only reservation with using this piece of lace, which is fortuitously absolutely the right size, is that I've got a scalloped edge on one side and this edge on the other side, and it would be nice if it was either scalloped on both sides or straight. Now obviously it is just about wide enough that I could turn that edge in, that scalloped edge in, and have it straight on both sides like that. But I think it might be quite nice to leave it one edge scalloped and one edge not, but I would turn it round so that this scalloped edge is on the front and this plain edge is on the reverse. So that's what I'm thinking of with that. I was going to have that originally like that, but the more I'm thinking about it, the more I think I'll have it that way and stitch it on that way. So that's what I'm going to do with that. I originally wanted to have a pocket in the back, but that doesn't sit right, so I'm going to have it slap bang in the centre of my cover there. And then for the inside, I'm going to use this little one. Love this embroidery, and I was going to use it as a page originally, but I'm not going to now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to applique this one in here as well, opposite the beehive, because I think those two sit beautifully together. And again, I've got a applique at the front inside cover, I've got a applique at the back inside cover, so that kind of gives some continuity. Not sure if I'll leave this one as a little pocket. I think I might actually, because I think that might be a nice idea. Probably have that a little higher up. I think that would be quite a nice idea, because then I could always pop something in there to say who made the journal for posterity. Lots still to do, but I'll come back when all that is done and show you the finished journal. And this is my finished journal. I've got the lace on the spine, which I'm happy with. I decided to put the scalloped edge of the lace on the back rather than on the front, because having it on the front, it was fighting with the lace that I've got going on around this embroidery on the front. I've also got my lace in between my signatures, so that's the first one. And that's the second one, and I'm glad I did that. I think that definitely looks a whole lot better. And I've got this little one stitched inside here, which is a pocket for me to put something in, and then just quickly going through and my tree on the back, and this one is all stitched in, there's no pocket there. And there we go, a very simple little journal. It took me absolutely ages to do those embroideries. And actually, by having a subscription, it dictated really how the journal had to come together, unless I wanted to stitch each one as an applique onto a fabric page. I probably wouldn't do a subscription again with the intention of making a journal, simply because not all the pieces, even though they came from one place or one store, not all the pieces came on identical pieces of linen, which was a shame. Some were slightly different colours, as you can see. Let's show you one that is definitely a different colour. This is a lot creamier than this one, but it is as it is. I had a lot of fun doing this journal, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.